Hello everyone, this is Six-Path Weeb. Welcome to my YouTube channel, where imagination meets storytelling. Today, we dive into a gripping fanfiction concept. What if Naruko was born in darkness? A tale where fate takes a different turn, shadows shape destiny, and a familiar story unfolds in a completely unexpected way. Disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's begin. Naruko was feeling very proud of herself. How could she not, after everything that had happened that day? The morning had started out a little disappointing when she didn't pass the Junon graduation exam. She had tried her best, but things just hadn't gone her way. Still, Naruko wasn't the kind of girl to stay sad for long. Later, her teacher, Mizuki-sensei, told her about a special challenge, a secret test that could give her another chance to prove herself. All she had to do was retrieve a very important scroll from the Hokage's tower. That evening, with determination sparkling in her bright blue eyes, Naruko carefully made her way through the village and into the tower. She tiptoed past the guards and found her way into a quiet room filled with shelves of ancient scrolls. Just as she reached for the scroll of seals, the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, whom she fondly called Gigi, appeared behind her. Naruko froze for a moment, then quickly used a playful transformation trick she had practiced. It distracted Gigi just long enough for her to slip away, giggling softly as she made her escape. Clutching the scroll, she ran to a peaceful clearing in the forest, just as Mizuki-sensei had instructed. The moonlight shone gently through the trees as she sat down and opened the scroll with excitement. Inside were all kinds of amazing techniques. Some looked very complicated, but one caught her attention right away: the shadow clone technique. Naruko focused carefully, forming the hand signs just as the scroll described. Shadow clone jutsu. With a soft poof, several copies of Naruko appeared around her. They looked just like her and even waved back cheerfully. It worked, she said, her face lighting up. Soon, the clearing was filled with dozens of Narukos, all laughing and chatting. She felt proud. This was something she could really do well. After practicing for a while, Naruko glanced back at the scroll. Maybe I can learn one more thing, she said thoughtfully. As she flipped through the pages, she found a mysterious technique. It wasn't about fighting, it seemed more like a summoning that called forth memories or spirits from long ago. Naruko tilted her head. I don't want to hurt anyone to do this, she said firmly. Just then, she felt a warm presence, like a gentle voice in her heart. You don't need to hurt anyone, the voice said kindly. You can use your own chakra and your shadow clones to safely bring forth echoes of the past. Naruko blinked but didn't feel afraid. The voice didn't sound scary, it felt calm and wise. Okay, she said, smiling. Let's try it the kind way. She created 2 shadow clones and had them stand nearby. Then she followed the hand signs carefully, focusing all her energy into the technique. A soft glow spread across the clearing, like fireflies dancing in the air. The light gently surrounded the clones, and instead of anything painful, it felt peaceful, like a quiet story being told. When the light faded, 2 figures stood there, glowing faintly like starlight. Naruko's eyes widened in wonder. She recognized them from books she had read in the library, great leaders from long ago, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. But they didn't look scary at all. They smiled gently, like friendly storytellers. Hashirama looked around and chuckled warmly. What a bright and cheerful summoning, he said. Madara crossed his arms, but there was a small, amused smile on his face. Indeed. This is different. Naruko beamed with excitement. Wow. It worked. I didn't hurt anyone, and I got to meet you. Hashirama nodded approvingly. You used creativity and kindness. That is true strength. Naruko stood a little taller, her confidence growing. Even though her day had started with disappointment, she had learned something important. Trying again, thinking differently, and choosing kindness could lead to amazing results. And as the glowing figures slowly faded like soft morning mist, Naruko smiled to herself, already looking forward to tomorrow's adventures. Naruko stopped celebrating and looked at the black-haired man, Uchiha Madara. She reminded herself. Who are you? Where are we? And what are you doing with that scroll? Madara's voice was firm, though more puzzled than angry. Me? Well, I'm Naruko Uzumaki. We're in a forest just outside Konoha. And, I probably shouldn't explain the last part, she said, rubbing the back of her head with a nervous laugh. Nearby, Hashirama Senju tilted his head curiously. Uzumaki? That's interesting. Most people from that clan have red hair. Naruko blinked in surprise. Wait, there are others with the Uzumaki name? I thought I was all alone. Hashirama's expression softened. Not at all. Long ago, there were many. My wife was an Uzumaki. Naruko's eyes lit up with wonder, but before she could ask more, Madara spoke again, his curiosity clear. Tell me, Uzumaki, how did you bring us here? This technique feels unusual. Naruko's face brightened with excitement. Oh. I tried something new. The scroll said the technique turns things into chakra, so I used shadow clones instead of real people. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, so I thought it might work. And it did. Madara and Hashirama exchanged impressed glances. That's quite clever, Hashirama said with a gentle smile. As they spoke, they sensed a powerful presence within Naruko, something ancient and strong. But before they could say anything, two figures rushed into the clearing. Run, Naruko. One called. Give me the scroll, shouted another. Both newcomers froze when they saw who stood there. Wait. Is that really? One whispered. I have no idea how this is happening, Hashirama said cheerfully, but it's nice to be here. The situation grew tense for a moment, but instead of anything harmful happening, Hashirama simply raised his hand. Vines gently grew from the ground, wrapping around the troublemaker's feet and holding him in place. Let's all calm down, he said kindly. There's no need for anyone to get hurt. Naruko watched everything with wide eyes, her thoughts spinning. Then she turned to Hashirama, her voice small. Is it true? Is there something inside me? Hashirama knelt down so they were eye to eye. There is a great power sealed within you, he explained gently. But that does not define who you are. He picked up a small cup nearby and filled it with water. See this? The water is inside the cup, but the cup is still its own thing. You are like that. You are still you, Naruko. Naruko thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. So, I'm still me? Always, Hashirama said with a warm smile. Just then, more figures appeared in a swirl of leaves. At their center stood Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Hokage. He looked at the scene in astonishment. Hashirama. Madara. How is this possible? Hashirama laughed warmly. It seems Naruko here has a remarkable talent. Naruko shifted shyly as everyone looked at her. Hiruzen smiled kindly. Then we should talk about this somewhere safe. You've done something extraordinary, Naruko. As the group prepared to leave, Naruko felt something new, a quiet happiness growing inside her. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. She had learned something important. No matter what power she carried, she was still herself, and that was something truly special. Hokage's office, later that night. So, Hiruzen said gently, setting a stack of papers aside. You were not satisfied with learning the shadow clone technique and decided to study another jutsu from the scroll? Naruko sat up straighter in her chair, her bright eyes full of energy. Yes, she did, she said, nodding proudly. It sounded interesting. And instead of choosing something simple, Hiruzen continued, adjusting his glasses, you tried to learn a technique that brings people back to life? Naruko scratched the back of her head, her smile turning sheepish. Well. She thought it sounded amazing. And when it did not work, Hiruzen added, his voice calm but curious, you heard a voice guiding you toward a different way. Naruko nodded again. She did. It was a little strange, but it helped. Hiruzen let out a slow breath, then leaned back in his chair. Despite everything, his expression softened. Naruko had a way of turning even the most unusual situations into something hopeful. And then, he said, you combined what you had learned in a completely new way. And somehow succeeded. Naruko beamed. She knew she could figure it out. Across the room, two legendary figures observed quietly. Hashirama looked around with wide, delighted eyes, as if seeing everything for the very first time. Konoha still feels warm and lively, he said. It is wonderful. And Naruko. She has a kind heart. I would be happy to help her learn. Naruko's cheeks turned pink. Hey, don't say it like that. She can learn on her own too, you know. Madara stood nearby, arms folded, his expression thoughtful. It seems we are connected to her in some way, he said. The farther I moved from her, the weaker I felt. For now, remaining here is the most sensible choice. Hashirama tilted his head with a friendly smile. Then we can both help her grow stronger. Naruko slouched slightly in her chair, trying to hide her embarrassment. She wasn't used to such important people talking about her like that. Hiruzen watched the scene with quiet amusement. Despite the confusion of the evening, something about it felt promising. After a moment, he opened a drawer and took out 2 forehead protectors. With a small flick of his wrist, he tossed them forward. Madara caught his easily. Naruko, however, blinked in surprise as hers landed right on top of her head. Ow! That surprised her, she said, rubbing her forehead. Hiruzen chuckled softly. Careful with your words, Naruko. That symbol is important. Naruko picked it up and stared at it, her eyes growing wide with realization. Wait. Does this mean she? It means, Hiruzen said warmly, that you have earned your place. You are now a Genin of the Hidden Leaf Village. For a moment, Naruko was completely still. Then her face lit up brighter than ever before. She did it, she exclaimed, jumping to her feet. She really did it. Hashirama laughed cheerfully, clapping his hands. I knew she could. Even Madara allowed the smallest hint of a smile to appear. Naruko carefully tied the forehead protector into place, standing a little taller than before. The room felt different now, not confusing or overwhelming, but full of possibilities. Hiruzen nodded, satisfied. This is only the beginning, Naruko. There is much for you to learn, but I believe you will do great things. Naruko grinned, her determination shining through. She will. Just wait and see. And in that quiet office, under the soft glow of lantern light, a new journey began, one filled with learning, friendship, and the promise of something wonderful ahead. All right. This needs a calmer ending than that, said the young ninja with a thoughtful frown. A loud crash still echoed through the small apartment, but this time, it wasn't anger that filled the room. It was surprise. Genins? Madara blinked, clearly confused. We're starting over? Hashirama tilted his head, then smiled gently. Well, that just means we get to learn things again. That's not so bad, is it? Naruko crossed her arms at first, pouting. Gigi really has a strange sense of humor. But then, slowly, her expression softened. A spark of excitement replaced her frustration. Actually, she said, tapping her chin, maybe this could be fun. Madara raised an eyebrow. Fun? Naruko nodded eagerly. Think about it. We get a fresh start. New missions, new teammates, and we can show everyone how strong we are, together. Hashirama's smile widened. That's the spirit. Madara looked between them, then sighed quietly. Humph. If we're doing this, we do it properly. Naruko suddenly rushed to the table, spreading out papers, but instead of complicated schemes, she began sketching cheerful ideas. What are those? Hashirama asked. Plans. Naruko beamed. But not for revenge, for something better. Madara leaned in, curious despite herself. On the papers were colorful drawings. A cleaned-up training ground. A surprise festival for the village. Decorations for the Hokage monument. Hashirama chuckled. You want to decorate the monument? Why not? Naruko said. It'll make people smile. Madara crossed her arms, though a small smile tugged at her lips. That's not entirely foolish. Dash. The next morning, the village woke to a delightful surprise. The Hokage monument was beautifully decorated, not damaged, but enhanced. Gentle colors highlighted each face, and below them were kind messages written neatly. Thank you for protecting us. Your legacy lives on. From Team 11. Villagers gathered, smiling and pointing. Children laughed. Even the shinobi paused to admire the thoughtful work. Inside the office, Hiruzen looked out the window, and instead of shock, he let out a quiet, proud laugh. Well, he said, stroking his beard, that's certainly better than paperwork trouble. Dash. Later, Team 11 stood together, watching the happy crowd. Naruko placed her hands on her hips. See? Much better than causing chaos. Hashirama nodded. You brought everyone joy. Madara looked at the monument, then at Naruko. You may be onto something. Naruko grinned brightly. Of course I am. That's what teammates do, we make things better. She stepped forward, her voice full of confidence and warmth. Team 11. Let's do our best. And this time, instead of shouting in frustration, all three of them spoke together with determination and a shared smile. Let's go. Dash. From that day on, Naruko and her teammates didn't seek revenge, they created happiness, learned together, and grew stronger as friends. And that was the beginning of their real adventure. Hashirama laughed warmly. Looks like Saru received our gift. So it seems, Madara replied with a small, knowing smile. Naruko tilted her head, her bright eyes curious. What are we going to do now? She asked cheerfully. Clothes shopping. Clothes shopping? She repeated, blinking. Clothes shopping, Hashirama confirmed, nodding with great seriousness. You look very bold in that orange outfit, Naru-chan. But if you want others to take you seriously, it might help to try something new. Madara crossed his arms. I agree. A good shinobi chooses clothing that blends practicality and style. Naruko pouted slightly. But it's my style. Hashirama gently spun her around with a grin. Then we'll expand your style. Maybe something like red samurai armor. Madara shook his head. Let's focus on something practical first. We're almost there. As they approached the busy shopping district, Naruko's steps slowed. Her smile faded just a little. Do you think they'll let me into the shops? I've been turned away before. Hashirama's expression softened. You're with us, Naru-chan. No one will turn you away today. Madara glanced around calmly. They're already watching us, he noted, noticing the curious looks from passers-by. The three of them walked together through the lively streets, filled with shops offering everything a shinobi might need. People whispered and stared, but Naruko stayed close to her companions. They stopped in front of a neat clothing store displaying simple uniforms. We'll start with basics, Madara said, examining a row of shirts. Comfortable clothing to wear underneath armor. Naruko nodded and picked up a piece of mesh underlayer. What about the armor itself? Hashirama smiled. We might still have some in storage. Naruko's eyes widened. But I'm not part of your clan. I don't think that would feel right. Madara gave a small nod. She has a point. After making their purchases, they stepped back out into the sunlight, carrying several bags. Madara then spoke thoughtfully. What about armor like mine? Would you like that, Naruko? She looked at him, curious. Is it like what you wear? Yes. Is it heavy? You get used to it, Madara replied simply. Naruko smiled. Then I'd like to try it. Hashirama sighed dramatically. I still think mine is better. Madara smirked. Clearly, she disagrees. Naruko giggled softly as the two began bickering like old friends. After a moment, she raised a hand. Where are we going now? The two stopped and looked at each other. I'm not sure, Madara admitted. Hashirama rubbed the back of his head. That's not very helpful. Naruko brightened. We could take everything to my place first. Both of them paused, then nodded. That's a good idea, Hashirama said. Efficient, Madara added. They handed most of the bags to Hashirama, who staggered slightly under the load, though he laughed it off. I suppose I'm the pack carrier today. Madara raised an eyebrow. You volunteered. Naruko giggled again, her earlier worries fading. Walking between them, she felt lighter, as if the day had turned into a small adventure. As they made their way through the village together, their voices, sometimes serious, sometimes playful, blended into a warm and lively conversation, carrying them forward toward whatever came next. Dear YouTube viewers, that's all for this part. Stay tuned for what's coming next. With appreciation. 6 Path Weeb.